Okay, so yeah, I'm just going to, in this last little section, I'm going to add a few more bits of information about sort of the Breedbase interface. I have put them together under the uploads and downloads name. So I guess, oh, what's going on? There we go. So I'll actually start off talking a bit about the Fieldbook and how we can interact with Fieldbook, and the user can obtain their files for it through the website. And then I'll talk about image uploads, which sort of adds on to a bit of what Chris was discussing. And then I'll also talk a bit about downloading via the search wizard, which sort of Lucas already gave an overview of the search wizard, but we'll come back to that for downloading data as well. I'll see. Yeah, I mean, I'll go through as much of this as I can, and then we'll see where we're at. So to talk a bit about the Fieldbook first, and for each of these sections, I'll go through the slides, and depending on what time is looking like, maybe I'll attempt a live demo. So for the Fieldbook, we reach this Fieldbook Tools page through the Manage menu under the Fieldbook App option. And so this page enables the user to download both a field layout file and a trait file, both of which will then subsequently be imported into their Fieldbook app on their phone or tablet or whatever device they have available. So to start off with, we'll generate a new field layout file, clicking on New over here. And so this relies on having previously created your trial, or if there's already a trial in the database. And so once you've already created your trial, you'll be able to select it from the menu up here. And you can specify the data level and the items that you want included in there. And we'll see it in the demo, but you can scroll down and there are a few other features in this window. But once you're satisfied, you click Submit, and then your field layout files available will appear here. Similar process for the trait files. So you'll click on New, and then you'll have the Create Trait File for Android Fieldbook app pop up, and you can select a list of traits, or you can select individual traits, and then you give it a file name and say Create File, and then your trait files will appear there. So then you can download those files and then transfer them to your tablet. Then you're going to, so I'm not actually going into it here, and it would be difficult for me to demo it probably on the Fieldbook app, but you're going to import those two files, your Fieldbook, your field layout file and your traits file, into Fieldbook, and you'll be collecting some data for a given trait, and then you'll move to export it in the Fieldbook app. And so you'll need to export it as the database format. I would recommend to users to select all imported columns, and depending on how many traits you're trying to do, you may want to select just the active trait, and then you can export. So save it, and it'll give you a number of options, per Fieldbook. So then once we've recorded our data in Fieldbook, we've exported those files with our collected data, then we can upload a phenotype file by clicking Upload. So using that database CSV that's been exported back from Fieldbook, we can bring it back into Breedbase. And so we click on Upload, and we'll have this pop-up where we select the particular Fieldbook file that we want to, that contains the phenotypes that we want to store. We'll click Verify. If everything passes validation, everything checks out, hopefully we'll get a bunch of happy green messages, and then we'll click the Store button, and it'll tell us upload successful, metadata saved for archived file. And then it'll show up under your uploaded phenotype files. So I guess, yeah, I'll quickly kind of toggle to doing live demos, maybe as time permits. So, oops. Let's see, let me go over here. Right, so first I'm selecting the Fieldbook app. Just to be sure, I think I shared my desktop. So as I toggle between things, hopefully you can see me changing between programs without having to unshare and then reshare. But let me know if that's not the case and you aren't seeing what I'm describing. All right, good. All right, so I've gone to the Manage menu. I'm under the Fieldbook app. So now I'm on this page. I can go to the field layout files, select, where's my, there it is. Okay, so I'll select my trial for which I'm going to be collecting data. I want to include these columns. Plot name, plot ID are important ones. And I can either include existing plot phenotypes that are in there or not. I'm going to set it off. And then if it works out, then I'll get a success message. Fieldbook has been created successfully. And I can actually directly download. Similarly, for trait files, click on New. And here, in terms of the lists of traits, I can select from any of the available public lists. As Lucas mentioned, some of the lists can be made public, and so I can access, if somebody else made them, I can access them directly. I can also use one of my private lists that I may have created previously, for example, in the wizard. Whatever. So we'll create a file. And it's working. Once we have those files, it's taking a little bit of time. Once we have those files, we will download them. And yeah, I mean, I won't go into great detail. We do have a bit of this, I think, in the SGen documentation, but basically you'll have to navigate in your tablet or phone. And here again, I can download the file directly, or I can just close it, and I can download from the links that are on the page here. Those files will then, you'll have to move them into wherever in the file file system of your tablet and your phone, you'll move them to Fieldbook will have its own folder, and within that it'll have an import directory, and then so you move your trait file and your field layout file to the import directory on your tablet under Fieldbook, and then you'll be able to access those from within Fieldbook. Record your data, and then once you've collected all your data, you export from Fieldbook, and then that file you'll be able to upload here. So I think we'll try this one. So this is a file that I've exported from Fieldbook after collecting some data. I have to store will not be enabled, so the user has to verify first. And as we saw before, all the checks work out here. Plot names and trait names are valid, and so now I can proceed to store it, and let's just try that. And so we have a message that the upload was successful. Okay. So that's more or less it for the Fieldbook interface. I'm not necessarily going into Fieldbook, but Fieldbook has its own sort of documentation. And we do cover a bit about that in the SGN documentation for how to sort of navigate the Fieldbook side of it. So I'll return to my slides. I guess we can pause for a second. Are there any questions about that sort of interface?
Yeah, just a brief question about the Fieldbook BRAPI interface. Is that working right? That's in production. That actually Breeding Insight implemented.
Yeah, that's in production.
Yeah, so that's another way to pull in data and export data from Fieldbook, where you go to the Fieldbook app and it can log into the database directly and pull in the data.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also automatically export it. It's a little simpler than dealing with files, but it's just another way to do it. And I think we probably should, show that too in maybe future workshops.
Mm-hmm. Sure. That's a good point.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So now just going to go through a couple of image upload options. So this is sort of can go along with uploading phenotype data. The options that the user has for doing this are you can do it through different ways, and it sort of depends on what you want the images to be associated with. So one way is in relation to accessions. So this you can access through the search menu. Well, you just get to a stock detail page, an accession page. So in this example, I think I'm just going through search to accessions and plots. I'm searching for a specific accession. Then once I'm on the accession page, the stock detail page, if I scroll down, there's a subsection that has images. And if you expand that, then you can add new images. So that's one way to do that. Again, you'll choose your file, select upload, and ultimately just store in the SGN database. Once you've got the file that you want, if you're unhappy with that for whatever reason, you can also escape, say go back. The other way to upload images, or one other way that the user could upload images, is through field trials, so associating images with a given trial. And so here I'm just going under Manage and going to my field trials, finding the trial that I'm interested in. And as I scroll down on the trial page, excuse me, there's this subsection for uploading data files. And so if you expand that and go down, there are a number of different types of files, but by using upload additional files, users can associate various image files to that. Upload additional files isn't, I think, restricted to image files necessarily, but that's a place where images can be uploaded. Lastly, there's phenotyping, an option under phenotyping. Chris, I think, mentioned this. So under upload spreadsheet, so if you have some phenotyping data in a spreadsheet, one of the options that's given to you is actually associated images. So not only will it prompt you to upload a phenotype spreadsheet, but if the user has associated images that correspond to that phenotype spreadsheet, then they'll have the option to upload a zip file as well. So yeah, I'll maybe quickly demo that. So it's a little bit of repetition, but you get to see it in action and look for test 3. So here I'm searching for my stock and going to stock detail page for the succession. And I scroll down. And so there's the images subsection. I can say add new image. I'll choose my file. I guess it's worth pointing out there's a number of different formats that the user can upload. I can select this one and then upload. This hasn't actually yet uploaded it. There's the extra step to store it in the SGN database. I'm not going to do that at this moment. But that's essentially the interface. So that's associating images with specific accessions. And so then those will show up on the stock detail page, on the accession page, as images that, I don't know, show interesting features of that particular accession. All right, so then other option was under trials. I'm gonna search for my trial that I'm interested in. So it's this one. And so now I'm on the trial detail page. And I have this subsection here, upload data files. If I expand that, there is an additional section here. So this is the upload additional files that I mentioned. So again, I can check here. It's usually a good idea to sort of check what information is provided in these information bubbles. That's always good to point out to the user. So it'll give you some information about the types of files that can be uploaded, particularly when they're spreadsheets, because that gives information about the column headings that are expected. And then so we can upload files, and I could select an interesting phenotype, and I can sort of specify a plot. And so I can upload them that way. I'm going to not complete this step, but that's basically that interface, and phenotyping. So this is sort of more to be able to upload batches that sort of highlight a specific phenotype. So Chris went over this a bit already, but I'll just point out this additional option here, associated images. So initially it'll just have us with the phenotype spreadsheet option, but if we select associated images, now we have, we're sort of prompted to associate a zip file with it. So I think I have an example. So this will be my spreadsheet. And this my zip file. And so as elsewhere, we have a verify button. So here you have to verify first that everything's okay. Yeah, so the file is valid, file data is successfully parsed, file data verified. I got a number of warnings. That's because I've already loaded this. So I can potentially overwrite previously stored values if I want to. But so the warnings are okay. They're not going to break things. I guess the other thing I can point out, it's important for the user to have, so within this zip file, it must have, so we'll take a look at the XLS file. I think I have it open. So here I have to specify, if I'm doing associated images, I have to have this image name column, and I have to have these JPEGs. So I have to, or whatever the file name is, I have to specify the file name for the images that I want to associate with each observation. Those files with those exact names have to be in my zipped file that I'm trying to upload. Otherwise, that will give me an error. Okay. So I can pause again here. Any questions about the various image upload interfaces? Basically, a number of different options depending on the interests they have. If not, I'll just cover some of the, oops, I guess, explain this. I will go over the downloading via the search wizard, and I'll cover some of those today and possibly some of it tomorrow under a different section. So a couple of general points. Users must be logged in to download data. Downloads can use lists or data sets. As Lucas mentioned, the search wizard enables the user to interact with lists that they may have already created or data sets. And I think I can give a couple of examples. Excuse me. So there's also various formats available. This is somewhat dependent on the type of data that a person is trying to download. So with the search wizard, you can download genotype data, trial metadata, phenotypes, among other things. I think there's a few subcategories within that. So this is the search wizard that was demoed earlier. So down in this bottom right corner, you may have noticed these options: related genotype data, related trial metadata, related trial phenotypes. So those are the various options for downloading data. So the related genotype data option, this should look something like this. I think the newer version has a few more options. But I can just go through these in a demo. But basically you have options to select the file type and then downloading the data type. You can get generalized genomic relationship matrix that you can include some filtering as well for the genotype data. For the trial metadata, it's a simpler interface. You specify the file type and just use the metadata button. For the phenotypes, so the related trial phenotypes, it'll tell you how many trials you've selected. And then you can again specify a file type. You can set bounds on the trait that you're interested in and the values of the trait. You can set plot level or plant level depending on the trial, and then just download your phenotypes. So I think that's it for slides. So I'll go through the demo, and so there we're going to use the wizard. And so I guess there's a couple ways to do this. So I'm going to start just using a list. So I'm actually going to load selection from list. I'm going to grab this list. Okay, so I've got a list of 15 accessions, not too many, but those are the ones I was interested in. And now I'm going to pick a genotyping protocol. And I'll take the 2016 genotyping protocol. And then I'm interested in the genotype data first. So tells me 15 accessions, selected protocol. And I can select either a VCF file or dosage matrix. Can try the VCF file. I don't know if, see how I can open this. It's going to be, might be a bit of an issue. Let's just open it in Text Wrangler. Anyway, you can get a formatted VCF file, essentially. Yeah, there you go. All right. And similarly, if I wasn't starting from a point of lists, actually, let me just refresh. If I was using, I were using data sets, I could use, if I already have a stored combination of accessions and genotypes, I could also use that. I think I had one in here that was usable. So I just click load, and yeah, it took a second there, but it loaded, and this was already a pre-selected set of accessions, and it already had a selected genotyping protocol associated with it. And I could have had other conditions or dimensions in there as well. So the data set saves whatever the combination of the dimensions is. And yeah, I guess in terms of trial metadata, I can just go through all the examples. Try this one. Right. So here I've selected these 3 trials. I can go here and just download the metadata as a CSV, or actually, let's just do it as XLS. And then I'll be able to access the metadata from those trials. File format, so that's been downloaded. And then the last but not least is the phenotypes. And I could probably just do the same. So just XLS and then download phenotypes. That should be fine. I got a few minutes here, so just to finish this up, and I guess emphasize a bit what was said earlier, there go the phenotypes. I mean, the search wizard is really neat for users because of sort of how you can slice or partition the data or select across various dimensions. So, I mean, I don't know if I can select an accession. I'll try this one. I mean, if I'm interested in, for example, I'm downloading phenotype data and I'm interested in this particular accession or these trials in this particular session, and then, you know, I don't want all the data necessarily. There's like two specific, well, in this case, there are 2 years, but say I'm interested in these specific years. I can select those, and then I could have another dimension that I'm interested in. Now, if I go to download the phenotypes, rather than getting all the phenotypic data for all the accessions, it'll just give me whatever subset of accessions I want, right? And in those specific years. So all the phenotypic records for this accession or subset of accessions. So just to say that the search wizard is pretty, like a nice sort of flexible way of selecting data, but then also of downloading it, because these downloads interact with the search wizard. You can sort of slice the information however you want, fairly flexibly, and then if you want your Excel file, you can just generate the Excel file, having selected things through the wizard itself. Yeah, so I think that's it for me. I think we're done with a bit of time to spare, so I guess we can take any questions on this last section or any aspect of the interfaces or